The name Jim Ratcliffe has reappeared in circles talking about a possible Manchester United takeover just weeks after what was apparently a possible Chelsea takeover. So who is he? Jim Ratcliffe is a British-born billionaire, actually born in Failsworth, North Manchester, in 1952, and he's said to be a Manchester United fan. Said to be a United fan. Kind of hope he is. He is the richest man in the UK with a reported net worth of about 19 billion. God damn. In 1974, he earned a chemical engineering degree from the University of Birmingham and he went on to work for Esso. In 78, he broadened his scope and in terms of career, he studied a master's degree in finance at the London Business School. He then began to give his attention to investment opportunities, including taking a huge risk mortgaging his own home in 1992 to buy a section of BP. It was then in 98 when Ratcliffe went on to make serious dough, though, from scratch when he launched INEOS. He is the current CEO of the INEOS Group, the fourth largest chemical company in the world, and the company has an annual revenue of $44 billion. He is said to be a childhood United fan, which, due to growing up in Manchester, you give a lot of credence to. However, the bid to buy Chelsea sort of rattled that a little bit. And then kind of reinforced it at the same time when he basically was like, well, United aren't for sale. So what's going on? Well, with time starting to run out for Chelsea to get a new owner, a few late bids to buy the club were submitted, including one from Jim Ratcliffe. Ratcliffe recently did an interview, and that interview, the one we're talking about there, with Dan Roan from BBC, where he said that he is now having a split allegiance between United and Chelsea, as he used to watch Chelsea when he was living in London. What are you talking about, lad? And his bid was too late to be successful, however. And the co-owner of the LA Dodgers, Todd Boehly, became the successful bidder. In the same BBC interview, Rowan hinted at Ratcliffe that maybe he should have tried by United instead. And that was when he gave that statement saying, I can understand that, but Manchester United is not for sale. We weren't for sale in 2005 when we were bought either. And we were very much for sale. Now, the reason this is interesting because back in 2001, the Times estimated that the figure needed to buy United would have been around 4 billion, 3 billion for the club and an extra billion to sort out all of our debts. Radcliffe's Chelsea bid was 4 billion, which shocked a lot of people because considering the sheer weight of Chelsea's debt, they were privately owned by Roman Abramovich. There wasn't a stock market price to be looking around at. But surely Manchester United would be somewhere in the region of the 4 billion mark, no matter what. How realistic is it that something could happen with Jim Ratcliffe and United? The internet, as it always is, has been awash with crazy rumours for the last 2 weeks, essentially. A lot of people might actually be in the know. I'm not. I have no links to Jim Ratcliffe, and I have no one who knows anything about Jim Ratcliffe has said anything of the sorts about him. So I am clearly not out of the loop on anything that could be going on with Jim Ratcliffe, but some people who profess to be in the know on this have been saying keep an eye on what's happening with the Jim Ratcliffe and the Manchester United situation. Now, he's proven by his failed Chelsea bid and other sports investments and sponsorships that I don't think he would be scared to buy Manchester United. He owns a Swiss club, FC Lausanne Sport, and a French club, OGC Nice. Nice. He purchased and rebranded Team Sky to Team Ineos, as well as being prime sponsor of both the All Blacks and the Mercedes F1 team. He's in the game. He's very much in the game. And before we all get giddy, we have to reiterate Jim's statement, which he said himself, which is, I'll be honest with you, I've been trying to get an interview with him for 4 or 5 years. And I've been trying. I don't have the same pull as the BBC, obviously, but I've been pied at every single opportunity. Especially when he was buying the likes of Nice. I tried to do it, and I tried to do it before that as well. But he said so himself, straight from the horse's mouth, Manchester United is not for sale. In 2010, a group of United fans with City of London sort of banking and lawyer backgrounds were assembled by an ex-Goldman Sachs chairman called Jim O'Neill, behind a bit of a movement called the Red Knights. Now, that deal failed to materialise. There were no direct talks with the Glazers even held, at least any that anyone's willing to admit publicly. Off the record, I believe some things did take place. And it shows that the sheer mammoth task that would be in front of Ratcliffe should he choose to get stuck in and try and get any kind of ball moving. Glazers seem to be allowing a reshuffle of personnel to happen in the upstairs region of the club's hierarchy. That could just be the consequence of having a new CEO in Richard Arnold. CEO is an extremely important figure in any organisation, and I think the Glazers are absentee owners. I don't think they care. I think they go, how much dividend can I take? Cool. And I think if you ask them what colour we play in, they'd need 3 guesses. But the CEO is the man that controls things, and that's why there's a little bit of hope that Richard Arnold coming in, blank slate, but bit of hope. I live in hope. There's a little bit of hope that Richard Arnold taking over as CEO might see a way for us to be relatively successful despite the Glazers. But if there's a reshuffle going on here, does it mean the Glazer grip has loosened? Does it mean they're open to something akin to any sort of takeover? And we have to remember, the European Super League was something that was their idea. They cooked that shit up. They were banking on that. This was a way for them to ring fence like an extra 200, 300, 400 million a season for themselves, mostly because they're not interested in paying the debt and they clearly don't have any interest in redeveloping Old Trafford or anything along those lines. They were doing that for purely selfish reasons. Now, that could have been a long-term strategy and a long-term vision of the Glazer family. And with that no longer being on the table, or at least currently is not on the table, could that spark, amidst all of the protests, amidst all of the anger, all of the hate, all of the issues, and an impending global financial crisis because of both COVID and what's going on in Ukraine and various other places in the world, could this be an excellent time for the Glazers to cash in? And could Jim Ratcliffe be someone that could benefit from that or take the opportunity to invest into the club on that front? There's nothing else to go off in terms of Ratcliffe's interest except that he seems to have either inquired or at least has the opinion that we're not for sale. He tried to buy Chelsea despite being a Manchester United fan, but he hasn't publicly expressed any interest. Even in his denial that United would be for sale, he didn't say, but I'd buy them if they were. So as much as this is potentially what we want, a Manchester United fan I wasn't happy with that Chelsea comment, unless he was just trying to, ease the way for him to buy Chelsea rather than just think about this on a pure business point of view. If you're a self-confessed massive, let's say it's me, right? Somehow I wake up, I've got 22 billion in the bank. Ka-ching. Everybody knows I'm a United fan. I'm going to have to fucking say, oh yeah, I lived in London for a bit and I did go watch Chelsea. I'd have to, wouldn't I? Otherwise, the fans of the club that you're attempting to buy, not having you. He's a United fan. I know he's a United fan. Runs a fucking United channel. Of course he's a United fan. But that's not the case with Jim Ratcliffe. Don't think he's a YouTuber. But either way, as it stands, I would say, while things look like they could be more likely than they've ever been, it's still extremely unlikely. And while it looks like this makes sense, just because it makes sense doesn't mean that it's likely. One thing that could happen, though, and I obviously don't hope it doesn't happen, is Ten Hag could fail. They could throw good money after bad and try and make it work again, which we've seen them do in the past, and we could sink further into debt and further away from the Champions League pot that they so covet and further away from being able to compete for the league. Should that happen, that would hit the sponsorship and the revenue of the football club more than any protest could hope to. And that actually might be a way that United get rid of the Glazers. Partially their fault, massively their fault, but just by being a bit shit, we might have convinced them to fuck off. As it stands, I think having someone that was a fan of the club, is a fan of the club, coming in, and especially with the expertise he's got in the sporting world, would be absolutely welcome. And I think buying Manchester United, as you've seen with the Glazers, is risk-free for the owner. And someone rich enough like Jim Ratcliffe, they could come in, wipe out Manchester United's debt that the Glazers themselves put onto the club, and United would instantly have an extra 100 million a season to do whatever we wanted to. Now, that could invest in the women's team, the academy, the stadium, or it could just be a straight transfer and wage budget. Obviously, the owners and the CEO at the time would have to decide that. But we pay 100 million or so in interest and debt refinancing costs every single year, as well as a dividend going out to the Glazers. Someone that didn't need to get a bank loan to be able to furnish any kind of debts that happened with the club, which the club only went into debt because they owned us, and they put the buy-in of the club back onto the club, which I don't know how that could even be legal, but it is. There would be no need for us to service any sort of debt. We would be starting at square one. And Manchester United, with no debt to service, just makes money. It made vast amounts of money pre-Glazers. It still made money despite having the £100 million a season interest payments, which is just bonkers. And with a new owner that didn't have to furnish that, United could be a force once again. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen with Jim at this moment in time. But if there's any developments, you know we'll be all over it. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.